In the city of Nneka, a young girl named Adanna found herself thrown out of her house by her stepmother, Nneka. After her mother passed away, her father remarried, and life for Adanna became a nightmare. Nneka's hatred for Adanna was deep, and she never missed an opportunity to abuse her, both physically and emotionally. One evening, after a particularly brutal beating, Nneka finally pushed Adanna out of the house for good, leaving her to fend for herself on the streets. Adanna, only 10 years old, wandered through the streets of Nneka, scared and alone. She survived by begging for food and sleeping in alleyways, joining a group of other homeless children. Together, they scavenged for food and looked out for each other, but life on the streets was harsh. Every day was a struggle for survival, and Adanna often thought of her mother, wishing she were still alive to protect her. Months passed, and the government launched a crackdown on street beggars, rounding up children and placing them in motherless homes. Adanna was taken to one of these homes, where she met Mama Nkechi, a kind-hearted woman who ran the orphanage. Mama Nkechi saw something special in Adanna and took her under her wing, offering her the love and care she had been missing for so long. Life in the motherless home was a stark contrast to the streets. Adanna now had food to eat, a bed to sleep in, and most importantly, people who cared about her. However, the emotional scars from her past lingered. She often had nightmares about her stepmother and the abuse she endured. Despite this, Adanna was determined to move forward and make something of herself. With Mama Nkechi's encouragement, Adanna started school. It was difficult at first. She was behind in her studies and found it hard to concentrate. The other children, who came from more stable backgrounds, often excelled in areas where Adanna struggled. But she was determined to succeed. She spent extra hours studying and asking for help, determined not to let her past define her future. As time passed, Adanna made her first real friend at school, a girl named Chika. Chika noticed Adanna's dedication and began helping her with her studies. The two became inseparable, and for the first time, Adanna felt like she had someone she could truly trust. Chika's friendship gave her the confidence she needed to keep pushing forward. Adanna's hard work paid off, and she began to excel in school. Her teachers noticed her potential and encouraged her to dream big. Inspired by the nurses and doctors who occasionally visited the motherless home, Adanna began to dream of becoming a doctor. She wanted to help others who, like her, had suffered and needed someone to care for them. Years passed, and Adanna applied for a scholarship to study medicine. To her delight, she was accepted, and her journey to becoming a doctor began. Leaving the motherless home was bittersweet. She had spent years there, and it had become a place of safety and healing. But she knew that it was time to move forward and pursue her dreams. Medical school was overwhelming at first. The long hours and difficult exams were unlike anything Adanna had ever experienced. There were moments when she doubted herself, wondering if she was strong enough to make it through. But every time she felt like giving up, she remembered why she was there. Her dreams of becoming a doctor and helping others fueled her determination. As Adanna progressed through medical school, she became one of the top students in her class. Her professors were impressed by her dedication and skill, and she quickly gained a reputation for being one of the most promising young doctors. She also made new friends, bonding with other students who, like her, were determined to succeed. Despite her success, Adanna couldn't escape the memories of her past. Her father had reached out to her a few times, sending letters apologizing for abandoning her. He wanted to reconnect, but Adanna wasn't sure if she was ready to forgive him. The pain of his betrayal still lingered, and she struggled with the decision to let him back into her life. One day, while working at the hospital, Adanna was faced with an unexpected challenge. A new patient was brought in for an emergency operation, and to her shock, it was Nneka, her stepmother. The woman who had made her childhood a living hell was now lying on the operating table, her life in Adanna's hands. The weight of the decision was overwhelming. Adanna knew she had the power to either save Nneka's life or let her die. Years of pain, anger, and resentment bubbled up inside her as she stood in the operating room, preparing for surgery. Memories of the abuse flashed through her mind, and for a brief moment, she considered walking away. But Adanna was not the same broken girl Nneka had once tormented. She had grown into a compassionate and skilled doctor, and she knew that her duty was to save lives, no matter who the patient was. With a deep breath, she made the decision to operate and save Nneka's life. The surgery was long and difficult, but Adanna's skill and determination saw her through. As Nneka's heart began to stabilize, Adanna felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had done the right thing, and in that moment, she realized that she was free from the pain of her past. Nneka no longer had any power over her. When Nneka woke up after the surgery, she was weak and disoriented. Adanna visited her, and for the first time in years, their eyes met. Nneka recognized her immediately, and the look of shock and guilt on her face was undeniable. She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. Adanna stood by her bedside, feeling a mix of emotions. She had waited years for this moment, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to say. Nneka, too, was at a loss for words. After a few moments of silence, she finally apologized for everything she had done, expressing regret for the years of abuse. The apology was sincere, but it didn't erase the pain Adanna had endured. However, she knew that forgiveness was not for Nneka's sake, but for her own healing. In that moment, Adanna made the decision to forgive her stepmother. It wasn't easy, but it was the only way she could truly move on. Over the next few weeks, Nneka's condition improved, and Adanna continued to visit her. Their conversations were brief and civil, but they never developed a close relationship. Adanna had forgiven Nneka, but she knew that they would never be truly reconciled. As time passed, Adanna's career flourished. She completed her residency and became a respected doctor, known for her compassion and skill. She received numerous offers for prestigious fellowships, and after much consideration, she accepted one that would take her abroad for 2 years. Before leaving, Adanna made peace with her father. They had begun to rebuild their relationship, and though it was still fragile, she knew that they were on the right path. Her father expressed his deep regret for not protecting her as a child, and Adanna, though still hurt, found it in her heart to forgive him as well. With her bags packed and her future ahead of her, Adanna left Nneka to pursue her fellowship abroad. As the plane took off, she reflected on her journey, from a homeless girl on the streets to a successful doctor. The road had been long and difficult, but she had made it. Life abroad was challenging, but Adanna thrived in the demanding environment of the fellowship. She quickly made a name for herself and began to